Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan and welcome to the latest episode of the RCB Radio Sports Show, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online at www.rcb.ie. This month we're looking at particularly the wrestling industry all across the United States and the globe, and so far this month, we've spoken to Adam Cole, we've spoken to Velvet Sky yesterday and of NWA, and now we're being joined by Ring of Honor's producer herself, Maria Kanellis Bennett, a renowned women's wrestler in her day, a former Diva Search contestant in 2004, made her debut with WWE in 2005, a former women's champion, renowned TNA Knockout Impact star as well. Then before moving to Ring of Honor, and she finds herself now in a sort of producing role. She's ascended from the role of wrestler to manager to now producer. And Maria, in terms of your journey from 2004, 18 years later, did you still think you would be involved in the women's wrestling to such a role that now you've taken on the role as an ambassador sort of warrior role for the next sort of generation of wannabe women's wrestlers?
When I started, I had no idea what it was going to take me, where the road was going to lead me. I loved women's wrestling. I loved the locker rooms, but I always believed that women offered so much more. And back in the Diva Search era, we had very short matches. And I always fought for more time and more opportunities, even though I wasn't the wrestler type girl. But as time went on, I learned. I had fantastic instructors and coaches and mentors to learn from. And the more I asked for, the more I received, not within WWE necessarily, but in Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling, and then back with Ring of Honor again. And I really feel like this is the direction that women's wrestling is taken. And you see people like Gail Kim and how she's in a producer role over at Impact, or you see Mickie James, who was in charge of the Empower show. There is a lot more opportunities for women nowadays, and I'm hoping that we just continue to push the envelope.
And Maria, when you go back to those, I'd say that Attitude Era, the end of that Attitude Era, and obviously you were on the scene at that sort of time, and your time in WWE, and it was the norm maybe around every festivity that there would be a bra and panties match, or a lingerie match, a paddle match, a pudding match with Trish Stratus, Tori Wilson, Stacy Keibler, yourself, and many times did throughout that sort of era. Did you feel that maybe that sort of, dare I say, matches and sort of lifestyle would change going forward? Did you see it that time, or did you feel, well, this is going to be the norm going forward? And
There were so many people during that time that were fighting for more opportunities. And when I was doing the sexier stuff and the bra and panties matches, those kind of things, I always looked at it as a role. I was playing a character on television, and it was just like being a sexy girl in a film. But at the same time, we were all pushing for more. You had people like Mickie James and Trish Stratus and Victoria that all wanted more opportunities. And eventually we got there. It just took a lot longer than we wanted to.
And Maria, when you look at the state of women's wrestling all across the industries now at the moment, from All Elite Wrestling to the WWE at the moment, to TNA, to Ring of Honor, it's in a healthy place. It's in a vibrant sort of place. You have women's Royal Rumble matches now. You have women's sold pay-per-view matches. You have women in steel cage matches. No doubt you're going to have a women's elimination chamber next. It's only a matter of time around the corner. So do you feel maybe that we've seen women's street fights, we've seen women's ladder matches? So do you feel maybe that wrestling has become more diverse, that maybe the sexism that was there in previous generations that has maybe died out as such?
I I think that it's always going to be a fight. I think it's that way with any kind of entertainment where things kind of ebb and flow. They go back and forth. But I do think that it's in a very healthy place. Women's wrestling is incredibly healthy right now. There's so many different opportunities, whether you want to be in intergender matches or those more hardcore style matches. There's an opportunity for everyone out there. And there's a different style for everyone as well. So I'm really excited to see things moving forward and get to that place where it's not, oh, well, this is just a women's wrestling match, but this is a wrestling match. And I think we're very close to getting there now.
Yeah. And Maria, in terms of women's wrestling and obviously the Ring of Honor documentary, this is women's wrestling, Ring of Honor being shown obviously on Fight TV and the Fight TV network. Tell me, what was the inspiration around this sort of documentary, a standalone documentary that's going out on the YouTube channel? We see Ring of Honor from a different perspective in terms of behind the sort of lens, sort of viewpoint. What was the brainstorm? Or how did that sort of idea come to pass?
So when Ring of Honor called me initially, it was to take over the women's division and to bring it back in a positive way. And that's what I wanted to do at this point in my career too. I would like to help other women succeed and excel in this industry. So I wanted to be able to cover that in a different kind of way and show what it was like to do this type of tournament, to bring in all these different women from different independent wrestling companies, to show that people had titles, whether it be an FSW or be Trish Adora's title, or all around the world that these women have held titles. And I wanted to be able to talk about that. I wanted to be able to talk about their stories. And so that's what we did throughout the entire tournament. And then we showed a spotlight on that during this documentary. And it really helped to create stars in a sense, because within that 45 minutes or 50 minutes, you learn so much backstory about so many different women. And I really feel like this is the wave of the future. We're going to see more and more of this because people love social media and they love to be able to stream all of these different women and men all across the country. And having this type of show brings it all together. It says, okay, this person is having a match over here, over here, over here. But here is the reason why they're in wrestling, and here is what they're fighting for.
And Maria, in terms of the project itself, from start to finish, how long did it sort of take in terms of editing and chopping? And obviously, as a producer of the women's wrestling locker room in Ring of Honor, obviously you had final say over the content. Had you sort of one or two sort of edits or one or two final things where you just said, no, I need to tweak it that bit more or come back? Was it a hard sort of process? Because obviously I imagine this is your baby, this is your project and thing. You just wanted it to feel like the love that you had for your own children, I imagine.
So when we first started the editing process, I told the editor and producer on this, it's okay if I'm ugly throughout it. I didn't want it always to be that I was, full makeup and all of this, because I was working, I wasn't always going to be the one that was making announcements or on commentary or doing that board of directors role. Sometimes I was just going to be the person backstage producing. And so I wanted it to feel real. I wanted that people to see that I don't wear full makeup every day. I'm not always dressed to the nines. Sometimes I'm just working for other people. So that was the first thing. The second thing was I wanted it to be gritty. I wanted to capture those moments like Roxy eating a bar before a match and getting so incredibly embarrassed, or when people have those real emotions like a Trish Adora. And for me, this entire documentary is dedicated to her mother, who has passed recently. But that true emotion of wanting to show her mother that had cancer, that she was accomplishing her dreams. And so to have that rawness, because life is raw and sometimes messy and dirty and ugly, I wanted to be able to see those things because there's beauty in that. The editor, Zane Decker, I thank him till I'm blue in the face, but I believe that you have to allow people to just do their jobs. And I didn't give Zane too much critiques on how to edit it together. I gave him specific pieces that I wanted to see, but I didn't tell him, okay, this piece and then this piece and then this piece, because he's an artist too. So Zane Decker did that. And then Brandon Bishop, who was our videographer that caught all that behind the scenes footage, I didn't micromanage him. He does his job very, very well. I gave him questions that I wanted the girls to answer, but at the same time, I didn't micromanage it. And, you know, then you've got Hunter Johnston, who just let me go and was just like, go ahead and produce this tournament. And then my partner, Bobby Cruz, who without him, this wouldn't have happened. And he just had that fatherly figure throughout this entire documentary. And I feel like that is what really drew it all together, is that everybody was incredibly good at their jobs and we just let everybody be creative.
And I suppose with a documentary like women's wrestling, obviously you're showing the good times and the good moments, but obviously we know women's wrestling is it's entertainment, but there's a risk factor involved in it as well, and people do get hurt and people do get badly hurt, and injuries is part of the business, and wrestlers have their ups and downs in terms of where they're happy in terms of the stories or their time on air and stuff like that. So do we get to see the frustrations and the injuries and the hardship as well in this documentary?
We do. We see that. We see the final two's families, but there was no injuries, knock on wood. So luckily there was none of that. We didn't have to show it because it didn't happen during this. You know, I would love to do another one. I'd love to do another documentary and to be just as open as we were with this one.
And Maria, in terms of promoting Ring of Honor and promoting the locker room in the women's sort of wrestling, and obviously I would say Ring of Honor in terms of international viewership, maybe the women's wrestlers are probably in other parts of the world probably not as known. Do you hope maybe that can maybe broaden their profile, broaden their social profile, broaden their status, that people will want to look them up, follow them, watch videos about their sort of past, and raise awareness of the locker room, the women's locker room? Is that one of the key driving forces?
Yeah. The entire year, it was about creating a team. We weren't collecting talent. We were creating a team, a division of women that could all wrestle very well together and define our place among women's wrestling in the industry. And all of these girls did such a great job of highlighting their strengths and showing their real personalities. And I hope that's what people take away from this, is they start watching their new favorite, whether it's Roxy or Miranda or Willow or Trish or Mandy or Angelina or any of these women that, you know, really showed us a bit of their soul. I hope it does raise awareness about these women.
Yeah, and I suppose last few questions, Maria, if I can just go back in terms of your general sort of career just for a moment. Obviously, you've been there since 2004, 18 years. I'm just wondering, at any stage, you might want to enlighten our viewers on this, because people look and they hear the injuries of some of the male wrestlers, torn biceps, torn triceps, multiple sorts of concussions. I imagine sometimes we don't hear the opposite side in terms of the women, in terms of that. Have you undergone many operations throughout your time, or any sort of serious injuries or concussions or headache?
I have, I broke my hand, I broke my thumb, and I broke my wrist. And all healed very well in a timely manner. But one of the funniest things was that I broke my wrist actually on my husband. I was getting ready to come back to WWE after I'd had my daughter, and my body just wasn't ready to go. And I ended up giving a clothesline. And when I did, I broke my wrist.
Okay. So you blamed your partner for that sort of time out. He was put up to the wall, the naughty corner. He had to turn his back for the next week or two.
Maybe he shouldn't just have such rippling muscles. If he wasn't just so strong, then I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. And Maria, in terms of traveling all over the world, you have traveled all over the world, you've wrestled all over the world. Have you any sort of memories of coming to Ireland and wrestling in Ireland, or getting to see parts of Ireland during your time, whether it was with TNA or WWE? And can you maybe enlighten us maybe of a story of that time?
It's beautiful and it's peaceful. And that's the biggest thing. And I just, driving through the country and just looking out and it just being gorgeous. So that would be the biggest thing that I remember. I wish I
Yeah.
had more time when I was there. I hope that I'm able to go back one day.
Yeah. And back in 2005, when you made your way to the WWE dressing room and the locker room, I suppose you were an avid sort of wrestling fan. Obviously, most girls that get involved with are sort of fans of the industry as well. Were you sort of like a giddy schoolgirl when you saw Stone Cold Steve Austin, when you saw The Rock, The Undertaker, to Triple H? Did you have to scratch your head one or two times? And what was the first encounters of meeting one of those two wrestlers? Or was it sort of, were you short for words, or can you sort of remember any sort of
I
that sort
was.
of?
So it's so funny because when I met The Rock, I went into the catering and he was there. And he was like turning around and starting to introduce himself to people. I had to leave because I was so nervous that I had to leave and like collect my thoughts and collect myself and then come back in and actually meet The Rock, because he's one of those personalities that it's larger than life.
Yeah. And Maria, in terms of events and matches, and you've done an awful lot throughout your career, is there any sort of, you mentioned about women and women wrestling getting empowering sort of matches, or matching matches of high esteem? Is there any sort of match outside of a traditional wrestling match that you have been involved in that has stood out to you as maybe even a hardcore match that you think to yourself, wow, in terms of script, choreography, the whole storyline, the whole build up to it, that you really sort of loved, and it sort of brings back happy memories of that sort of particular segment?
So I always think back to when I got to tag with John Cena against Lita and Edge. And
Okay.
just, I was so new. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And they just babied me and got me through everything. But oh my gosh, I look back at that and I just think I've done so many things.
Mm. And what does the future hold for Maria Kanellis in terms of going forward? Are you going to be still obviously your ties with Ring of Honor? Are you going to be active on the independent scene? Are you open up to any other projects? What does 2022 hold in store for Maria Kanellis?
So I am a part of Impact Wrestling right now,
Okay.
with Mike Bennett, and then with Matt Taven, Vincent, and also PCO. We're called Honor No More, and we're just making our own rules right now. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about, I have a new exclusive content page that I've been working on. It's called MariaKanellisWorld.com. And between those two things and then two crazy kids, which it's my son's birthday today, we're at Peppa Pig Place right now.
Okay.
Between all of that, I'm plenty busy, and I'm so thankful for all the opportunities I've gotten so far in this industry. I'm going to continue to fight for women. I would like to have my own women's wrestling show, hopefully with Bobby Cruz. I don't know if that'll be a big show or if that'll be just a small independent show, but getting to work with a group of strong, talented women has really been the highlight of my life. So I hope to continue to do that.
And finally, Maria, for the last 30 seconds, I'll turn it over to you. You might enlighten all our audience why they should go on mass, why they should check out the YouTube channel, watch the documentary. This is Women's Wrestling, produced by Maria Kanellis, and what's in store for them?
So you can watch the brand new Ring of Honor documentary, This is Women's Wrestling, on YouTube. It's currently playing, and you should watch it for the people, for the stars, for the stories, and to get a little bit of insight into the minds of all of the female wrestlers that are in this great industry. I really am proud of it. I'm proud of all the women that are a part of it. And you might just find your favorite wrestler watching it.
On that note, Maria Kanellis, an absolute pleasure talking to you today. We
Nice
wish you
to
all
talk
the
to you.
success with the documentary, and hopefully, please God, we'll get to speak to you sometime in the near future. Maria Kanellis, God bless, take care and stay safe.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.